the interface of Natron, the very first thing I want you to worry about is project settings before you proceed any further. Because, let's see where to find it. Display, show project settings. This is how we find it. And then, or you come here, node graph, and you tap S, and then you get project settings. Okay, because this defines your technical specifications for delivery. You cannot get this wrong from the start. What is this? This is the output format. This is your frame rate and all the settings that you need to deliver. What you have here is a list of settings. Now let's assume list of output formats. Let's assume you do not have what you want in here. What you need to do is quite simple. If you have shot something with your camera and your camera has the settings for delivery that you want, then you just bring in the file and come here, of course, connected to the viewer, come here, new format. It's copying from viewer number 1, or it could be any other viewer. If you have more, copy from and put the name of your custom format. Okay, so this is in case it is not listed in here. The second bit is going to be the frame rate. The frame rate is very important because that depends on the region for which you're delivering. Now, if it's 25, it's 24, 29 point something, this is important. And this is not set automatically because when you bring in a footage, I did not, say for example, frame range first, 0 to and last, 696. I didn't set this one up. I didn't put this manually. So what happened? When I imported the first one, the project took the frame range first and last from the first footage I brought in. So this is how it was set. But this is an image sequence. It does not have a frame rate information. Frame range is, frame rate is here 24. So be careful that you need to change it to whatever works for you. If it's 30, if it's 25, this is your technical delivery requirements, okay? And you need to change your incoming footage, whatever you bring in, you import, you change the frame rate for that, okay? Because we have talked about it during the compositing, and when I connected a few, we had that warning that the frame rate was different. So this is what it was about, the frame rate in here. Good. Now, the first bit is the output format, the second bit was the frame rate, and the third bit is the frame range, and I said it was copied from the file, but this doesn't have to be the case when it comes to your read. Now, this is project settings. The project settings can be this long, or you can trim it to less than that, because initially, when you have a film, you have the clapperboard time, you have the action is being mentioned there, and you also have cut. You don't need all of that when you're working with the with a file, okay? So assuming you're not getting it straight from the timeline, you're getting it straight from the camera. In the timeline, you would already have cut these parts. So take the frame range that you need, and only the frame range that you need when we're talking about importing in the read. Here, read, frame range, first frame and last frame, just select the ones you need. And this way, when you come to the project settings, you only use what you need, okay? All right, so this is the first bit, most important project settings. Now we're going to move to other things, which is importing footage. How do we import footage in here? How did we get this stuff in here? Now, of course, you've already seen in the compositing, quick compositing exercise that I've just dragged and dropped. Well, this you can do it all the time, anytime. But I wanted also to point out that unlike After Effects, if you are coming from After Effects, unlike After Effects, this doesn't work with importing or exporting. This works with reading and writing. So if you come up here, File, you will not find anything import, and you will not find anything export. It's all about project. It does nothing else but project. New project, open, everything is about projects here. So the mindset in a node-based compositing is everything happens with nodes. So you want to bring in something that's going to be a read node. This is why this is called read, and this is called read. And the opposite of read is write, which means when we want to export, you're going to need a write node. It needs to be, so okay, just tab write. Here you got it. This is your write node. And it tells you, okay, save sequence, and you need to put the file name and the extension and whatnot. Okay, good. Right. This is how it works. Read and write and notes, okay? Where do you find them? Well, you can come here and tap and then type read, or you can just use the shortcut R, okay? Or you can come over here, and I would recommend it to be the last resort, to come to the left and select image and select read, because there are some nodes you are going to be using so often, you don't have time to go and grab them from the list. You're going to be using read very often. You're going to be using merge very often. You're going to be using transform very often. You're going to be using roto very often. So these things you want to know the shortcuts for, or simply come here and write tab and press tab and start writing them. Merge. I think your most likely course of action is going to be the tab, unless you really are going to use these four. Like 1, 2, 3, 4. These are the most common ones. Of course, if you're using very often blur as well, or any other node, you want to know the shortcut for that. So this is M, this is T, this is O, this is R, and then right is going to be W, something like that. Yeah, W. Cool. All right. So now that we have talked about importing and exporting, I would like to bring your attention, to draw your attention to the following. What do we read? What do we import? What kind of file? During compositing phase, it's a bit different. The mindset is a bit different than when you are editing. When you're editing, you bring in footage from the camera. It's a video file. When you are working with compositing, you don't composite. You're actually going to bring in several files, right? And you're not compositing only 2D with 2D. So this is an image 2D, right? You are also compositing 2D with 3D. But haven't you noticed that 3ds Max, Maya, Blender, Houdini, Cinema 4D, all the 3D packages, when you come to render, what do you render? Do you render a video file? Or do you render image sequences? You get it. It's all about image sequences. So compositing is about image sequences. Okay? I will be using some video files during the course of this training, but I want to draw your attention that you should be using sequences more often than not. Okay, whenever you can. Because why is that? Because file support. Importing, in terms of importing, Natron supports a list of files. And this isn't a limitation of Natron. I'm going to tell you that Nuke has even a shorter list of things that it supports. I mean, the paid, the expensive version, Nuke Studio. Let's go to Nuke Studio here. Right, this is Nuke. And I'm going to attempt just to import a normal read, normal MOV file, okay? Let's bring in normal MOV file. Error. Okay, so I got an error. Let's bring in another. Same story. Error. Now, this is Nuke. You would expect an expensive piece of software to be able to read at least .mov files. I'm working here in, this is a Windows machine, so Nuke in Windows does not necessarily support MOV. And it also doesn't support MXF. MXF is the Sony native format for cameras. All the Sony cameras record in MXF. Now you bring in MXF, you get an error. It doesn't recognize the file. The problem doesn't lie in the software, Nuke, or in Natron. Let me try to bring in something else for Natron to show you support as well. Natron, we're going to go up, and I'm going to try to bring in a red file. EXR's compositing. No, this is not the one. I'm trying to get you some red files here. Yes, red footage. This is red raw footage, R3D, from Red Camera, okay? When you bring it in, initially you don't get an error, but as soon as you say, well, this is connected one, and you just disconnect this one, and you start in the timeline, if you move like this, you get read 3 error, invalid data found when processing input. Now, Natron does not support red raw. It does support some other formats. Instead of, why am I telling you all these stories? Instead of you worrying about, oh, my file is not supported, therefore maybe I should not be using this software because it's frustrating, I need to move to another one. That is not the point. The point is, in the first place, you should be using image sequences and not file formats. Image sequences are supported by any format, any software. Okay, so this is why I really find it in Natron a wonderful thing that when you come here and you press R, when you want to read, it doesn't give you open sequence like you would get here in Nuke. In Nuke, when you do R, it tells you read files. It really tells you exactly what you should do. Open sequence. You need to be working with sequences, okay? So hopefully this is clear. We're going to move to the next part. The next part is about when you want to read, you are able to see what you are reading here. Let me just go back to my... There's a Natron bit here. There's a Compositing XRs. Right. There's this here. I mean, you won't be able to know if you have too many files. Maybe it's not too clear from the sequences, the sequence 0, 1, 0, 2, 0, 3. You just click on this arrow here, and it's going to give you an idea of a preview. I mean, a thumbnail preview of the file. Okay, that is one. And one thing is, of course, we talked about bringing the node from here, read. You wouldn't do that for the nodes that you use very often. You would do it for other nodes, and I really suggest you go and discover and explore other nodes. We're going to be working with quite a few of these, quite a few. But there are some others that I really want you to just get in the habit of just discovering them. Don't use this menu as your first course of action. Use it when you don't know what you're looking for, right? Okay, you are going to find that this is organized by category. The first one is image, and this deals with bringing in stuff and exporting it, writing it, rendering it. You also have some other stuff here, like the checkerboard, the color bars, and the color wheel. I may be thinking this is redundant or useless. These actually come in very handy. And the constant. Constant is basically a solid. Like if you're coming from a from After Effects, it's a solid. There is also a solid here. There's also a solid, but I tend to use the constant more often as a solid. Okay, so what is this? Let me just connect the color bar. It gives you a color bar, and you think, what should I use it for? You may be interested in checking colors or or something. Like this is like, for example, you are going to change to whatever color and use it as a background. Where is my constant? I just lost my connection. Right. When you do, say, for example, screen replacement, or you want to replace a banner, replace a sign, sometimes you want to use a constant. Sometimes you want to use a checkerboard, for example, to see that there are no distortions when you are replacing. It is really handy. And if you want, say, for example, to work with hue shift, then it's handy also to have the color wheel. These are inputs, right? It's like instead of having video files or image sequences as input, you have this as input, okay? And you can then merge or do whatever you want with these. They come in quite handy. Now, let's move to the next. This part here is draw. It's mostly about rotoscoping and other pen tools, right? This is about time, and it's sorry, time remapping related things. This is shuffle, and it's a very useful node about color channels. So you're able to switch the green, blue, the red, green, blue, and alpha channels. And then we have here the color. Now, this is your color grading stuff. Okay, color correct, color lookup, hue correct, hue HSV, which also acts as a hue shift, saturation. You've got quite a few notes in here, right? Then there is filter, keyer, and the rest. Okay, there's plenty of lists. Keyer is very important. Now, this is when you want to key blue screen, green screen, and you could also use them actually to key some other things. But most often than not, it's going to be green screen. All right, we'll see this in a later section. Okay. Next bit is to talk about the viewer here. Okay, I'm going to take you to another project, and let's look at this. You are sometimes going to need more than one viewer, because you can, as part of the interface, split the viewer. Come here and say split horizontal. I'm going to tap F to center it. Yeah, I just used F in the keyboard, and you can come here and add a new viewer, and that's going to create automatically a second viewer for you here, which you could connect to anything you want. These are just viewers. So it's not like source footage and timeline. There is no timeline in here. We're just compositing, and the output goes through the viewer. I mean, it's rendered with the right, but it's the viewer that lets you see what you're doing. Let me connect this viewer to this guy over here. Okay, I've got a child levitating in the air. What do we have here? It has already been keyed from a green screen, and we have already removed the ropes. The kid was suspended by ropes. What we have here is you have the possibility to work on the composite as well as individual files separately. Now let's have a look at what we can do. You can view RGB, or you can also view the alpha, because when you're keying, you're going to be using two viewers, and one is for the alpha, one for the green screen source. So you can see red channel, green channel, blue channel, of course the noisiest, and alpha. Okay. You also have the gamma, right? Let me just increase this a bit. Okay. Every time you make a change somewhere, it turns red, which means that if you notice something is weird about your viewer, chances are you have changed something. So go to the red and click on it. It goes back to the default value. This is gain, this is the gamma. Okay, we have already seen, let me just increase this. We have already seen, I think we don't need this one anymore. I'll just delete the viewer as well, close the pane. We have already seen this part, A-B comparison in this project. In this one, when we had these two together, right? So this comparison, we've already seen it. You just come here under, and you can use the wipe. Right, okay, you can wipe. And same story with turn in, right? So that is one. And then another bit is the region of interest. Let's say, well, because this can be quite time consuming in terms of calculations, we know it's already doing its best. Natron is not recalculating nodes twice, we've said that. But if you're interested in just a part, then probably that's what you want to focus on. It gives you the possibility to do that, okay? So let's assume these two girls are the only ones we want to be focusing on, the left part, and then we move later on to the center, then we move later on to the right part. Then you are working and visualizing just that part, okay? You can also, depending on how heavy your footage is, now in this case it's not much, just HD, but if you're working, say, with 4K DCP and you're working with several of them, chances are you may want to work with the proxy mode. Now this is an option. It's not necessarily the case that you want to do it all the time, but you may want to do that. Let me deactivate this wipe thing. And when you come here, you have activate. So you need first to activate it, and then it gives you reducing the resolution. You divide by 2, you divide by 4, or let's see the effect of 32. Say it's all pixelated. It gives you the possibility to work on this version if it's lower, to work on a lighter version. This does not impact your final output. It's just viewing, okay? All right, let's go back and see what other things do we have in here. Of course, we have the timeline bit, and you have the in and the out. Now, this is the first, let me go back here. This is the first part of the frame. Viewer, let me move to number 1. This is, and disconnect this one. This is the first part of it. The first frame is 0, and the last frame is 696. Now, we can ourselves come here and to the read and change it. Okay, I'm going to delete this one. To the read and change this manually. You say, okay, I just wanted to start somewhere like 10 and 600, for example. Now, this is one thing. Another, which means that, have you noticed here that it has changed? Initially it was 0, and now it's 10. Now, what happened is that this first frame, it didn't give us an error because here it says 0, but it says here 10. I'm supposed to be standing on 10, but on 0 I can already see it, because before you can define the behavior of before, hold. That means it's going to freeze the frame for number 10 and apply it for 9, 8, 7, 6, up till 0, which is also the case for last frame, 600. If you go to 650, you will find that you don't get an error unless you want to. You can say, show me error, but it holds and it keeps the last frame. It's up to you what you want to do with this, okay? This is, why did we talk about this? Because then we need to talk about this part here. Now, these are independent from each other. You can set the in and the out. You can come here and set this as in, right? How do you do that? You can either type you can come here to, say 55, and you just type in, press Alt-I. Alt-I, it gives you the input, 55. Now, if I want the 592 to be the out, it's going to be Alt-O, and here I have defined the input and the output, the in and out, okay? Sorry, not the input and output, the in and out regions, which is reflected here. You could also do that manually by typing here, okay? Or here, right? And you could go to a frame, say 300. I'm going to take us there, okay? So these are the main things in the interface I want you to worry about. You have the curve editor and the dope sheet. These are more things that we're going to be working later when we have some keyframes and stuff. But for now, most of the time, you are going to be working with the node graph. Another thing about the interface is, for the viewer, when you come here and you want to see something in here, there are numbers assigned, okay? So there's a 1 and then there's 2. A viewer can take up to 10 inputs, okay? So you can connect 10 videos, 10 source files, 10 image sequences to one viewer. And you can have as many viewers as you want. You can add image and another viewer, okay? And you can add another viewer if you want, right? So it depends on your needs. You could say, for example, here, have split horizontal and another split horizontal. And you could move viewer 2 here and viewer 3 here, okay? Right? So we talked about the split, but what I would like to talk about now is the number assignment. So let me remove this. Let's just keep it. We're going to work with viewer number 1, okay? Viewer number 1 on its own, let's move these ones to the side, can take up to 10. So how do you see it? You can either connect like this if you want to see it in the viewer, or you can do it differently. You can come here if you are, and it depends on where your cursor is. If your cursor is on the graph, a node graph is one thing. If your cursor is on the viewer, it does completely different thing, okay? If you're here and you tap 1, then you have assigned to this source file number 1. I click here and tap 2. Then this becomes number 2. Here, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and then 0 is for 10, okay? 0 is for 10. Now, what have I done? I have assigned numbers. Yes, it's true. When I click in here, it shows up here. But if I want to call for the viewer to see something, then I need to be up here with the cursor on the viewer and then tap the number I need to call. See what I said? When I did this, automatically I have the comparison between quite a few videos, because in here, in the preferences, this was left on. This is what could be annoying, because I never intended actually to make any comparisons, so I don't want that. Save. Let me disable this stuff in here. Close pane, and disable it. This is viewer number 1, viewer 3, and disable this stuff, okay? So you can take up till 10, and when you're here, you can come 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. You are calling 7, 8, 9, 10. You are calling from the file to view it. But if I come here, what is this number? 1. If I tap 4, I have just changed the assignment to 4, and 1 is vacant. So be careful, please, when you are playing with numbers, when you're working with numbers, your cursor defines what happens. Down here, you're assigning. Up here, you're viewing.